Adams George Archibald was born in Truro, Nova Scotia. He also had a doctorate, yet unlike many of the other fathers of the Confederation with doctorates, he was a doctor of laws. In other words, he had a doctorate because he was a legal scholar, as he became a lawyer in 1851. In terms of being a politician, Archibald was the first elected to the Nova Scotia legislature in 1851. He supported Joseph Howe up to Confederation and decided to go to the Charlottetown Conference, so he defected to Dr. Charles Tupper's pro-Confederation government. A year later, during the election of 1864, he went from being a member of the pro-Confederation Party at the Charlottetown and Quebec conferences to being an anti-Confederation Party member under his old friend Joseph Howe. In the second election of the year, because the anti-Confederation Party wouldn't support schools publicly funded by taxpayers, he went to being a pro-Confederation politician once again. So upon the province of Nova Scotia coming into Confederation in 1867, Archibald first of all made a member of John A. Macdonald's federal cabinet and a senator in 1869. The next big step in Archibald's life was to become the lieutenant governor of Manitoba. He served from 1870 to 1872. He was also effectively in charge of being the first ever commissioner of the West Territories, as that was his original appointment in 1870. He then held the position of the first lieutenant governor of Manitoba. To that, Dr. Archibald famously read an extremely long proclamation proclaiming himself to be the lieutenant governor to an empty field with some trees in it. He had then taken the roundabout route using the United States because Riel's Métis loyalists had blocked his path when he tried to go straight from Upper Canada into Manitoba. Although Manitoba had responsive government in theory, because of the Manitoba Act of 1870, Dr. Archibald held in practice total power in Manitoba and the Northwest Territories. In 1870, he actually met Louis Riel in person in Lower or Stone Fort Garry, for which he was rebuked by both the Governor-General and the Prime Minister because he had negotiated with rebels. After his western adventures, Archibald became Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia for 10 years, from 1873 to 1883. After that, he returned to the Senate, where he continued to serve until a year before his death, when he resigned due to ill health. He died in his native Truro, Nova Scotia in 1892, aged 78. Dr. Archibald also founded the Nova Scotia Historical Society in 1880. During his lifetime, he came under public scrutiny several times after a series of articles defending the government of the day's right to deport the Acadians from Nova Scotia, which consisted, at least in theory, of the entire maritime provinces, back in 1755. Robert Barry Dickey was born in Amherst, Nova Scotia in 1811 and was educated in nearby Windsor. He became a lawyer in 1834 and a year later was a qualified lawyer in New Brunswick as well. In terms of his political career, Dickey was appointed to the Nova Scotia Legislative Council, which was basically the Nova Scotia Senate, as an advisor to a succession of governors on legal matters, and he served in that role from 1858 to 1867. Robert Barry Dickey attended the Charlottetown and Quebec conferences and fought hard for Nova Scotia to join Confederation. Dickey's post-Confederation career was relatively short. He was appointed to the Senate in 1867 and served there until his death in Amherst, Nova Scotia in 1903, aged 91. William Alexander Henry was born in Halifax in 1816. He became a lawyer in 1841 and moved to Antigonish shortly afterwards, but he also kept a law practice in Halifax. He also continued to practice law off and on throughout his life. In 1840, Henry, who had previously fought for responsible government in Nova Scotia with Joseph Howe, was elected to the Nova Scotia legislature, where he served from 1840 to 1843, and again from 1847 to 1867, and became the Attorney General of Nova Scotia from 1864 to 1867. In terms of Confederation, he attended Town, Quebec, and London conferences and was a strong believer in the idea of Confederation. This was also in addition to his being a lifelong supporter of railroads in general. Later, he was a major supporter of the transcontinental Pan-Canadian Railway from coast to coast. Yet, in spite of all his enthusiastic support, Henry rejected the idea of what he saw as an unfair Senate representation system when it came to Confederation, as he realized that in time it would become a means of partisan control by political appointment. It would also deny the smaller provinces their equal representation in Parliament, which is exactly what the Senate is designed to prevent from happening. Nonetheless, he worked tirelessly on legislation which he thought should be included in the British North America Act during the conference. There's even a story, or rather a myth, that he helped McDonald draft the North America Act. Unfortunately, like everybody else who tried to help, McDonald just ignored him entirely. Henry drafted some of the 50 of the 72 resolutions in the North America Act totally by himself. After Confederation, Henry was defeated in the first federal election in 1867 because he had previously tried to separate the entrenchment of Roman Catholic schools in the British North America Act. This was never included in the Act in the end. William Alexander Henry was also elected as the mayor of Halifax from 1870 to 1871. In 1875, he was appointed as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, or a Supreme Court judge, by Alexander Mackenzie. It was in this position that he held until his death in office in Ottawa in 1888, aged 71. Jonathan McCully was born in rural Cumberland County, Nova Scotia in 1809. After achieving his own education, he worked as a school teacher in Cumberland County from 1828 to 1830 to predominantly finance his legal studies. He became a lawyer in 1837 and practiced law in Amherst, within Cumberland County. He also wrote frequent articles and editorials to both the local Acadian Recorder and the Halifax Chronicle, which became increasingly sporadic after 18. McCully was elected to the Nova Scotia legislature as a member of the Liberal Party in 1837. He served a variety of roles as a minister and cabinet under Joseph Howe from 1847 to 1864. When Howe lost to Dr. Charles Tupper, Howe personally blamed McCully for the defeats in 3 different elections in 1864. Although McCully attended the Charlottetown Conference and the Quebec Conference, he initially stuck with Joseph Howe's anti-Confederation party until Howe lost a vote of non-confidence. So Nova Scotia joined Confederation as the third and final election in the winter of 1864, at which point the anti-Confederation party collapsed, and McCully then joined Dr. Charles Tupper and went to the London Conference with him. As for Jonathan McCully after Confederation, he was appointed to the Senate in 1867 and also succeeded in getting better terms for Nova Scotia with regard to Confederation in 1869. In 1870, McCully became the Chief Justice of the Nova Scotia Supreme Court, but died in office in Halifax in 1877, aged 68 years old. John William Ritchie. John William Ritchie was born in Annapolis Royal, Nova Scotia, to a prominent local Loyalist family. He also became a lawyer in 1831 and became the Solicitor General of Nova Scotia in 1864. He attended the London Conference and was made a senator after Confederation, a position he held until his death. He was also a judge in Nova Scotia Supreme Court from 1873 to 1882, when he died of a heart attack in 1890. It is also worth noting that his brother, William Johnston Ritchie, became the second and longest serving Chief Justice of Canada, or a Supreme Court judge, for 17 years, from 1879 to 1892. Dr. Charles Tupper was born in Amherst, Cumberland County, Nova Scotia, to a prominent Scottish Loyalist family. He studied medicine at Edinburgh University in Scotland, where he received his medical doctorate in 1843 and practiced medicine throughout the rest of his life, off and on. Dr. Tupper became the head of what would become the Canadian Medical Society from 1842 to 1867. He also became the first Minister of Health in Canada from 1867 to 1873, and ran a drugstore in Amherst until 1846, but the store ran into financial difficulties and closed down. Dr. Tupper also extracted his own teeth, performed his own surgery on himself without anesthetic or pain relief, to remove a bullet from his right arm after being shot in Quebec City while he was Prime Minister in 1896. In addition to giving free medical checkups in Parliament, he also kept his doctor's bag under his desk at all times. He also delivered all 6 of his own children, although only 4 of them survived into adulthood. He and his wife were left with 2 of their 3 sons and 2 of their 3 daughters. In terms of politics, Dr. Tupper was elected in 1855 as a member of the Nova Scotia legislature. He then became Premier from 1864 to 1867 when he made the jump to federal politics. Dr. Tupper attended the Charlottetown, Quebec, and London conferences and was a member of Parliament from 1867 to 1884, during which time he was the President of the Queen's Privy Council of Canada from 1867 to 1872. He was Minister of Revenue and Customs from 1872 to 1874, and he played an important part as opposition from 1874 to 1878. After the Pacific Slander, as he called the Pacific Scandal, After that, he was once again back in power as Minister of Public Works from 1878 to 1879. Then as Minister of Railways and Canals from 1879 to 1884. Dr. Tupper was then appointed as the High Commissioner, or Ambassador, to Great Britain, which he held from 1885 to 1896, after getting into a bitter feud with John McDonough over a series of top brass railway appointments. After the death of McDonough in 1891, Dr. Tupper eventually became Prime Minister for 66 days, or 69 days due to the contesting of elections, for 3 more days by himself, until, at the age of 76, he resigned. He then remained as the official opposition leader until his relegation altogether from the House of Commons and the Conservative Party in 1900, but he remained in Parliament until 1901. He was also the only doctor to be Prime Minister, at least medically. From 1901 to 1915, Dr. Tupper lived in London, England, when he became involved in business and wrote his memoirs. He also gave frequent and very long interviews and learned lots of new languages into his 90s and was frequently visited from Canada by his 2 surviving sons, Charles Herbert Tupper and William Dunstan Tupper, who were both Member of Parliament and a Mountie in the latter's case, respectively. Dr. Charles Tupper died aged 95 in 1915. He was the last original physical physician to die. Although a lot has been written about Dr. Charles Tupper since his death, even during his own lifetime as well, George Barnes is at best. If he came to a door, he threw it open and strode into whatever was on the other side of it. Like a lot of different fathers of the Confederation, Tupper was a man of boundless ambition, tremendous reserves of exhausting energy, and strength to see what he wanted done, and coupled with a fierce sense of stubbornness. For, as he was somewhat nicknamed, the Ram of Cumberland County, or the Old War Horse of Cumberland County, etc., as he was known to be extraordinarily eccentric as well. In fact, most of Tupper's family went into some form of public service, usually politics or the civil service, and thus became known as the Public Service Tuppers. Some of them continued to serve until the 1850s, right up until the death of his youngest son William in 1948. Perhaps it was a long list of public Tuppers that is the truest legacy of Dr. Charles Tupper and his family to the country of Canada that we have today. But outside of Halifax and indeed Nova Scotia, Dr. Tupper is a pretty obscure man. In fact, he doesn't often get mentioned in histories that deal with the subject of Confederation outside of the Maritime Provinces itself.